At the Nottingham, we pride ourselves on giving members a better financial future for you and your family, whether that's investing your savings, purchasing a house, or saving for the future. We're big believers that every penny helps, and together we can help turn your saving into a habit. From ISAs and fixed rate accounts to easy access savings and ideas to get your little one started. We have a great range of savings accounts to suit almost everyone, so why not visit us at thenottingham.com and find out why more than 190,000 customers already trust us with their savings.
Now that we've solved political issues and convict replacement, I think we're off to a flying start, aren't we?
Perfect. That's just a perfect segue into some ice hockey. Like, you've had experience with the convicts. I noticed you played 3 games in Australia.
I did. I lived there for a while. One of my classmates at I'm not sure if you're familiar with Notre Dame. It's a private boarding school where it's essentially all you do is play hockey. He was the Australian Wayne Gretzky. And he's their all-time leading national scorer. He's their all-time leading, elite league scorer. And we played junior together, and we're classmates. And he said, "We'll pay for your flight if you play a couple games." So I went on a drinking/hockey tour. And then Edmonton, I was property of the Edmonton Oilers at the time, and they exercised the option on my contract. I didn't know that. So I was in violation of NHL rules, like Canadian labor law, and IHF rules all at once. And I didn't give anybody my cell phone. I was like, fuck, I'm just going to go traveling. And I was still training and planning on playing. But my agent got a hold of my parents. They gave him my mobile number in Australia. And my agent called me at like 3:30 in the morning going, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I'm clueless, right? Like, "Oh, hi, Peter. What's going on?" So needless to say, I got home quickly after that.
Oh, if that's a teaser for what we're in for, this is going to be fantastic. I'm very excited now. So do you miss playing? Do you miss the rush of playing?
I miss the attention.
Yeah.
But no, I what's the one? I'm trying to think the right analogy for it. I gave everything I had. I got everything I needed, and it was time for me to not play anymore. And I miss the relationships, but I don't miss the grind of it. And I got to the point where when I was done, I was okay with being done, but I also didn't stay too long.
Go when people ask why instead of why not.
No, I think I was right, depending on who you're asking. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Everyone has an opinion these days.
Yeah, and a mechanism to voice it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But no, there was, and I can answer this on record. But I was not wholly focused on hockey in Nottingham. I was focused on that transition in school, and that took away for some of the nights. There was stretches where I was really involved, and I cared all the time because I cared about my teammates, and you never want to be that guy. But in terms of, attention to detail, preparation, finish the school paper, or so I can practice extra hard tomorrow, that balance. So there was times there. So that was an easier way for me to transition out of the game instead of the hard stop that would have, if you just, you played every day, all day, and then all of a sudden you just go back. It actually made it easier on me.
I don't think anyone who watched you play could say you didn't care about playing the game. You played with a lot of passion.
Yeah, and I couldn't. It was the time aside from that maybe was less. I don't want to say less passionate because I did try when I was there, but just where my focus and around, I guess.
Well, you're a veteran at that stage as well, so you already know a lot of how the game works. That's you're 33 when you're in Nottingham. You know how it works when you're there.
You'd hope so. I told myself I did. I don't know if that's true or not. Again, not really. It's opinion based, probably.
So what was the process in you coming to Nottingham? What was it? Was it the schooling that drew you in? Had you had offers from the Elite League before? What was the story for Brent Henley coming to the UK?
Corey wouldn't leave me alone over years, and some ill-fated attempts that were just horrendous. I was under an NHL contract. He's like, "It's better over here." And I was like, "Bye, Corey." That actually happened. I was walking through a park in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm like, "You understand I'm under contract with the New York Rangers. I have a spot here. It's way better over here. You'll love it." All right. but it actually came. Lee Salters and I are close for a number of reasons, and Corey had called and asked me if I wanted to play, and I said I politely declined. But I said I know somebody who does, and so he got Salty to come over, and I was talking to my wife, and she had a really heavy work schedule. We wouldn't have spent a lot of time together anyway, and I just had in passing mentioned about the schooling. And then it kind of, grew. It went from a short conversation a little longer, and I went, all right, well, maybe this is something I should explore. And after talking to Corey and a couple of the guys that have been in Nottingham, not just about the coaching, but the fans, the facilities, it became, a better idea every time I said it out loud. And then eventually my name was on paper and I was on an airplane.
So I'm guessing the first time you met Corey would have been in Pensacola, potentially.
I had played against him once, but I was really young at that point and not really, there wasn't much crossover. I only saw him once. It was we played and left. So I just knew him. I knew him by reputation, and hockey's still not a big world, right? So it was, he cold called me a couple times. And that was over the course of probably 7 or 8 years. We had multiple conversations, but just finally it aligned. And like I said, I was on a BA flight from Vancouver.
And like you said, hockey is a small world, and I'm sure Corey Neilson's personality travels around that small world. There are not many people like Corey, is the thing I've learned from doing this show.
Yeah, but I don't know. Again, this comes to matter of opinion. I have wonderful things to say about him.
Oh, everyone does. He's just different.
Yeah, but I have some complaints, and but at the end of it, he gave me an opportunity to play for a good organization, and he's a guy, same thing. He cared, right? And I think that's the takeaway from any coach I have. The ones that cared and dedicated themselves the best way they knew how. Those are the ones that deserve respect and have nice things said about him.
And then he's got his right-hand man there, Rick. And then they kind of keep each other in line, don't they, Corey and Strax?
Yeah, Strax. I have many memories of Strax, actually, even though he was his coach. He was there.
So when you get to Nottingham and you get to see the arena, because obviously Corey's telling you on this arena, he's telling you the arena's better than MSG. He's telling you all this kind of stuff. What did you make of the arena when you first got to see it?
And again, because of my extensive travels, even globally with hockey, I knew guys that had played there before, and a seating capacity thing wasn't bad. And I'm also, my viewpoint of the arena is now skewed by being there and seeing the other options. So there was something inherently flawed with every UK arena to me, because the lowest level East Coast League rinks had better dressing rooms or were fit for hockey, or even if they weren't, they altered them. I was okay with it, which sounds almost kind of spoiled. I don't want to be that way, but once I went around the country, I went, wow, this is really, really good. And that's the way to look at it. Because I showed up, and I mean, I was blessed to be in MSG and the Joe Louis and the Pond in Anaheim, and like it goes with 20 of those rinks. And so when you wheel into something that's not that really skews your perspective on things. But after going to other places, I was really happy that I had Nottingham for a home base.
There's nothing that will give you more of a welcome to the Elite League moment than going to Fife.
Oh God, yeah, I didn't last long in that rink, did I? Yeah, there's the whole second tier division, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, there's some interesting facilities. The tent was the worst, though.
Oh, Cardiff.
That was just like you're getting dressed in a portable. That was just odd to me. There was no walls, and the rink was 60% of the size it should have been. Which I said, but now funny memories. But walking into it the first time, looking around, going, "Oh God!"
You go from that to then what is like a swimming pool in Edinburgh as well.
Actually, yeah, I was gonna say Edinburgh. I felt like I was in a minor hockey rink. There's like 6 people there. There's more people watching me play when I was 9 years old. So yeah, that was
because the ice is so big out there. It must feel quite strange being in there. It must almost feel like a practice session. But the good thing is that when you play for the Panthers, you do get a lot of traveling fans come with you.
That was one of the nicest things, was the traveling support, for sure, because there was a lot of empty, like going to Hull. There's no motive. You get guys getting dressed in the lobby,
The disco.
And yeah, and that, like, there's no atmosphere unless our fans are there. Like that was the only reason to actually look around, go, I'm not only playing a professional hockey game, but one that has some emotion to it. So yeah, the traveling definitely helped for those terrible, terrible arenas.
And then for those terrible arenas, you then do get the other side, but you get your Belfast and your Sheffield, which are a bit more like Nottingham, but a bit more, it seems more professional when you go in there, sort of thing.
It was a definite, but their teams were more professional as well. The guys you were playing against, American League, NHL experience, the way they conduct themselves on the ice. And there was a switch that flipped that I think based more on the level of competition and depending on each team. Belfast, because they were good, and Sheffield, just because there was like just a mutual disdain there for not only the players, but the coach. I will get into that. I just got instantly mad thinking about Doug Christiansen. You think I'd be able to let things go? But like traveling in there, knowing that building was better, knowing we didn't like them, but then knowing our fans would compete with their fans. And then even that would bleed back coming into Nottingham, the importance of those games and how much more emotion and passion there was to those.
So how easy is it for you to then, is it a case of Corey just telling you don't like those guys? Or is it after the first game where you see the crowd is packed, it's a full barn? Is that when you feel that rivalry?
There's a bunch of inputs to that where never would the coach has nothing to do with that. You read, but it's passing the guy in the street, walking, parking my smart car and walking, he goes, get, I'm swearing on this, but like, get him, right? 3 days before the game, or returning players sharing some of the stories. And then just that general feel, there's a buzz and aura in the building. So it's all those create a confluence of events and inputs to then you just know. Because if you can't tell, then you shouldn't be playing hockey.
And the kind of good thing is that during your time here, we kind of had the better of Sheffield in our own arena. And that just adds to it all, doesn't it? We've been showing classic games on YouTube and things like that. And one of the ones that went up and caused a bit of a stir was the one where you had the incident with Tim Spencer where as Rick Strachan told me, it was a totally legitimate line change.
Oh, that one. Yeah. Yeah. Tim, he was picking on Muzz, on Chris Murray. That's not allowed. Like that, but I mean, to me, that wasn't a Sheffield thing. That was, you don't touch, like you just don't do that. And then the reaction to it from their side, where it was a legitimate line change, but like I saw it happening on the way on. But that's something that's one of the good things about Corey, actually, when a lot of coaches would have taken out, like, oh, you put us down or whatever. He knew not only why it happened, but why I had to do that. And you didn't hear anything from Tim the rest of the year. Right. And that's the whole purpose of that. It's not for show. It's not for my ego. It's so no one touches our guys, and I said, it served its purpose. And
those kind of incidents do kind of happen because when you play Sheffield, it's normally you play them Saturday and Sunday, and there's no time for things to kind of like simmer down, is there? If something happens the first game, it can boil over.
Yeah, the more time he spent playing against guys, the more you dislike them usually. And then with all the other inputs into that, call it ongoing relationship, if that's the right word for it, rivalry, then that builds to it. It does heighten everything. But somebody from Edinburgh could have done that to any of my teammates, and they would have got the same response.
And you mentioned Doug Christiansen a minute ago. Did he do something that season to you? Or is that from like prior?
I don't know how far.
No, he was mouthing off at you, wasn't he? He was mouthing off.
So he is, and I wish that, like, this is one of those, somebody send this to him. He is the biggest pretender, and he was in the East Coast League when he was in Roanoke, and I was in South Carolina. And as soon as no one big was around, he was really tough. And then all of a sudden, anybody showed up, and I don't mean my size, like a guy who was 6'1", 200 pounds ago, like, hey, no, that's not allowed. He'd turtle, he'd shrink away. And to know him as a player like that, and then to have him as a coach yelling at me from the bench, that was it. I already didn't respect him, but that made me angry at him and carry it over. And it's funny because you mentioned, like history. I remember doing the Tim Spencer, but I respect Tim Spencer. He's a tough guy, and there's no way I would kick dirt in his face, and not expect to get punched back. Like, I have respect for that kind of player. And a lot of the guys on Sheffield, the little bald agitator prick.
Oh, Hewitt.
Yeah, But I respect him. He does his job. Like he was that. But to have somebody that had that career and acted that way, to then stand behind a bench and do something like that, to me, that was unforgivable for so many reasons. And I remember yelling there. And then we had an off-ice incident where that goes into a whole other story. At the end, we're hosting playoffs. But like, again, I'd say it to his face. Glad to respond, because I always hated the guys who talk behind. I was never that guy. You never chirp in the media, you go through. And I said, I want to make it clear, I respect the guys on Sheffield. I have no respect for Doug Christiansen.
Well, it's one of those. It's like you say. It's one of those where you kind of if you're going to talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk as well. You can't just mouth off when you.
Yeah. Well, it's bad enough you do it on the ice and disappear, but then you stand behind a bench and send your guys out to do it for you. That's unforgivable to me.
Well, I spoke to a guy who played for us in 2010, and he still won't let anything orange into his house.
Dedication. I got to, again, respect that.
it's a full buy-in.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to go.
One of the things about the season you're in, Nottingham, is that you were following probably the most successful season in the club's history. Did that weigh on the team at all, do you think? Because that's always in the background.
I can only say it from my perspective that every year I've been lucky enough to win a couple championships. The rings, and it's a different format. Obviously, we carry much more weight in playoffs and on the North American side. But I never went back that next year and carried weight with me from that. It was a start fresh. And I came in fresh, right, on this. So I don't know if the Brits felt that way. I don't know if the returning imports felt that way. To me, it just spoke to there's a level of expectation, but that expectation was tied into bringing in guys like Lynn Loynes with NHL experience and spending money to get role players like myself in, to keeping Kowalski in net. So there's an expectation to perform based on player history, not necessarily club history. But that's how I felt. Again, I don't know if other guys would have felt that way, but we never discussed it. It wasn't if we don't win 4 trophies again, they're going to lynch us. It wasn't. We never had that out in the open anyway. Well,
the strange thing about that year was that team never really had a chance to get settled either, did you? Like, there was so much turnover. There was injuries, players coming, players going. There was something like weird additions that lasted a bit, and then like I'll say the name, Joe Grimaldi. He comes in and he goes straight away. It's just, there were just some very strange things that happened that season.
Yeah, I think it was odd, but the fact that we were able to bring in replacements, and if they weren't good replacements, punt them quickly, to have some short-term contracts, to try out players, speaks again to the status of the organization and the backing of ownership and management, and how nice that was. But yeah, it was. I mean, I did this. I hadn't obviously thought about the roster in a while, and I open it up, and it's long.
Yeah,
like, it's really long. And I mean, I broke my ankle because a 19-year-old Latvian fell on it. God. Like, what? Like, that's not a story you say. And there was a lot of turnover, but I have some wonderful. The big Finnish defenseman.
Oh, Tuukka Mäkelä.
Tuukka's wonderful. And we had like a weird goalie show up for a while. Grimaldi's there's Grimaldi stories that are not for me to tell, because he came in when I was out. But yeah, it was an interesting cast of characters. But I think by the end we were all back together and assembled the way we were supposed to be at the start. But the weight of all that over the year, I think, is what led to it not continuing on a success. I think everybody was just kind of done by that point.
Well, I think that it all started when Eric broke his leg pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
And that just seemed to be the start of this. Like, I think Clarkey was getting injured quite a bit. There was just guys just missing all the time. And that does affect the cohesion, doesn't it? Because you can't get settled in the line. Someone's coming in, someone's coming out. And you just can't, because on paper, that was a very good team.
Oh yeah, if you scrape the hockey DB and put together the lines that you think should be together, say, well, I think we win multiple cups, championships, or said to me the playoff loss is what I'm mad about. The other stuff I don't really understand, because I wasn't raised with it, or didn't spend multiple seasons chasing it. But there was it's unfortunate, but seasons happen like that. And I said, what do you in history? But yeah, if you're right, if you scrape the first 9 or 10 forwards and first 5 defensemen. That was a really good group. But I don't know how many games we actually ever played together.
One of the key things about a team in the UK is the British players. They're the guys that come back year on year on year. How important were those British guys to like help you settle in the city? Like guys like David Clark.
It was a mix between, because I mean, Clarkie had so much, he had a family and all that. So it's just nice to have a good guy in the dressing room and a good captain and a good leader. But there was so many Canadians, and I've known Craig Kowalski, same thing, for 10 years previous, and having them on the roster, and then we was walk in and go, yes, do that, don't do that, go here, this is how that works, because there's a level of familiarity that goes with it. That eases the transition. The Brits, we were quite young still, with the exception of Clarkie, and I'm terrible with teammates. And the defenseman who scored 9,000 points.
Weaver.
Yeah. And we were the same thing. Like, he had a family and kids. He didn't want to babysit us. He was into playing and go through. But the imports mixed with the British guys who were just young and excited and happy to be there made the transition easy. But it's also, we're hockey players. You play for, especially someone like me, like 22 teams in 14 years. You get used to going new places.
And one guy who does babysit the players, though, is Goody. He really takes care of everyone, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, without him, we can't get on the ice. So. Yeah.
I always feel the need to boost his ego for some strange reason.
But that's the support staff that surrounded the team. It's another thing that separated him in the UK. Like, if you went to, I won't name teams again, that lower tier, but like, they didn't have equipment managers that had an assistant. They didn't have, the access to physio and training, to the gym memberships, the stuff that actually adds up over the course of a year.
And you also got the ultimate problem solver in Gary Moran. You have a problem in Nottingham, Gary will sort it out.
I mean, again, that's the management side of it, where it was, they took care of the players, and were able to say, when we spoke to, getting players in and out, and having Gary be able to help facilitate that, right? That makes a huge deal for an organization.
And then with, like Clarkie being in and out of the locker room, like, he's such a huge part of that locker room. With him getting injured and coming out, how does that affect a room when he's not in it anymore on a game day?
Again, the perspective is different from someone that played, for 14 years. So it becomes, I liked having him around, but I didn't depend on him for much. But then younger guys, especially the Brits, that's, he carries a greater amount of weight or influence on them, and they need somebody like that. But we had such a veteran group and a good structured group that, you didn't have raw guys to fill him. You just followed a guy like Lynn Loynes. You just followed him to work, and you knew what he was doing was right. So you try and emulate somebody like that. So from a leadership standpoint, we had enough senior guys to not replace or cover, but to help fill that void. But again, that's my perception from a very different set of eyes than somebody who would be much younger.
Now, you mentioned you've been around Craig Kowalski for a couple of years in North America. He is a character. doesn't train very hard, but on a game day, he is dialed in and probably the best netminder that's ever played in the Elite League.
He's one of the best semi-professional netminders, of my, from 2000 to 2015, and carried that reputation. I played against him, run across him, and we brought him up to Norfolk in the American League, and he was instantly better than the 3 goalies who were under NHL deals we had. Like, he took over. He just started at the end of the season. And it was always put to Craig about, if you're a little bit harder, a little bit. But he also didn't pass the eye test even when he was younger in shape. He was just a little bit smaller, a little bit unorthodox. And I think he just embraced that one. I can stop a puck, I don't care, because these things don't matter. Because no matter how ripped he got, I don't think he would have got the proper chance playing professionally just from stature and style, which is a terrible miss for any scout who ever said that, because no matter where he went, he won, and he was the best goalie in that league.
And then when you come in to the Elite League, one of the unique things you have to adapt to very quickly is the fact that the league championship is the main championship. How hard is that because when you spent a career chasing playoff titles, I can't imagine that's an easy switch to flip.
No, and it never actually did for me. And I understand that that Tuesday night in Hull counts as much as a round 1 playoff game from the North American side. I couldn't get my brain to go there. It just is a condition from the time I was a small kid watching Stanley Cup playoffs and the legends of playoff players and game 7s and elimination, and the idea that during a season where we where we battled injuries and we had roster turnover, that if you could come together at the right time and get a hot goalie, and it's not a fluke because it'd be over 28 games, or four best of sevens, then there's still as much more value in that than the league. So that's how my brain, I'd still never be wired that way, right? And it never resonated with me. It was the in-league, in-season tournaments.
The Challenge Cup.
Yeah.
that was the saving grace of that season, the Challenge Cup.
I sent my medal to a really nice school kid that wrote me a nice letter for
that's
a project. Well, but it also, like, I kept my rings. I would never get rid of those. It was like, oh, this is not a thing, and you give it away. Which I think maybe if I'd have played a couple of seasons or been exposed to it longer, then knowing that the fans cared and the organization cared, that probably I would have absorbed it and been able to turn my thought process. But no, even you saying it now, I don't care.
But the thing about that Challenge Cup as well is that it kind of like mentally drained the team for the rest of the season, didn't it? The running, that game against Belfast, everything went into that, and after that, everyone just seemed like, I was a fan in the stands back then, and everyone just seemed spent.
Well, it was we got something, and all the stuff we had fought through, all the injuries, all the other stuff. So that's the relief I would generally feel at the end of the season, like end of the season when we won a playoff, championship. You go, oh, we're done now. I can actually let go. And I think a little bit of that probably bled into the team psyche and mentality.
And then after, like I said, the playoffs in the UK are a very strange weekend. It's one weekend, like 2 weekends worth, and you have this aggregate game against the Clan that doesn't go as it was supposed to. But what were you getting told about that weekend that was coming up? Like, were people telling you fond things about it? Could you understand it before you got to see it? The week after you went there just to watch, sort of thing.
The aggregate again completely lost on me. Like, why not just play a 120-minute game? I don't know. And by that point, I think you touched on it correctly, where we were done. We had, after that, the Challenge Cup, it was just guys were already looking to move on, or had checked off at least one box, knowing that, and had mentally gone, we still try, we still want to win, but we're exhausted. And actually what killed us the most, in my opinion, was a trip to Italy.
Oh,
unless somebody was there to see it, I have never been wronged so badly, by not just in sport, in life, by the refereeing that took place there. And I know I'll speak for myself, but a couple of the other North American guys, that was our last chance at truly elite hockey. And where we were playing mostly just imports, and we had, special rules, we dressed extra guys, and we were playing not the highest level of competition, but really good pro clubs with a lot of guys. And we outplayed the Italian team, and we got it was disgusting what the referees did to us.
Man in the crease, every call.
And penalty calls, just the whole thing. And that was something where we had a healthy stretch, and it had become, we were firing on all cylinders, or whatever terrible analogy you want to use, but we outplayed those teams, and then we weren't allowed to win. And to me, that was something that's I've kept with me for as many years, where I'm still mad, because I thought we could have gone to the next level of tournament and played for that European Championship, whatever it's it's like Europa League,
the Continental Cup.
Yeah, and that I believe everybody would have come up even more as a players and as a team. And I said that sticks with me. I don't know if I'm alone on that. You don't really call people and go, hey, he's still mad about by a referee in Asiago, but that stayed with me, and I think that took a lot out of me, and I think a couple of the conversation, it took a lot out of my teammates as well.
And one of the cool things that you got to do that year, the first round was hosted in Nottingham. And did you ever think in your career you'd play against a team from Spain?
Oddly enough, I mean, given my world travels of hockey and playing against the Melbourne Ice Cats or whatever, nothing surprised me. But no, until they landed, I didn't actually know there was a club team from Spain that would even be relevant. More surprising was how poorly we played against them.
I hear you got very told off, even though you beat them.
Yeah, really hard to like somebody like ankle bending knee, like it's hard. It's also sometimes harder to play against that level. You're not motivated, but also they're just kind of in the way. Like you run into them, like you shouldn't be standing there, and then they take the puck.
Yeah, they're not where they're meant to be. So
No,
it throws you off even more. So you look worse.
Yeah, they were definitely not where they were supposed to be.
But then the big game that weekend was the last one against the Latvian team Riga with the juniors and things. And you weren't actually involved in all the fighting in that one.
No, because the little guy, I just started crying. I was so angry. It's like swatting kids. Like, just get out of here! Stop running, annoying. And finally, he took a 30-foot run at me, and then at the last minute decided that was a bad idea and just fell into my foot. And I remember going, "This doesn't feel right." And I've had a lot of knee surgeries. I have heavy braces on both legs, and so all that pressure went to my right ankle, and that's where I actually broke it. And played for a while, but I was annoyed the whole game. Like, what are you doing on the ice with us, and why are you running into me?
Well, I think Salter sent a few of them back to Latvia with a few of the hits he laid in that.
Yeah,
game.
but he had enough. Like, and I would have eventually reached that point too, where I just started hurting children, which just sounds terrible. But they did whatever ice federation decided to put them on the ice against us, which we should have skipped that step in retrospect.
It didn't stop Bob Wren.
Well, Bob's the same size. That made it fair.
He fed the kid. He fought his lunch. I'll say that for him.
So there's some humor, but there's also just shame.
Yeah,
beating up children.
It's like you kind of like had that game against the Spanish team, then the Dutch team, which they were kind of like a semi-professional. They were
that was shinny too, though. We're just kind of floating around. They knew they were going to lose, and nobody get hurt here. We'll be fine.
That's also the kind of sort of thing with the Elite. Like on a Saturday night, you could play Sheffield in a full barn, and then on Sunday you have to go to Edinburgh. Like you mentioned before, like things like that are hard to get up for. But just explain how tough that kind of difference is from that emotion against Sheffield to a road trip to Edinburgh or Dundee.
And again, from my, the way I looked at it, and so because the League Cup wasn't, so that Sunday when you play in the East Coast League or the American League, and you're playing the fourth game of 5 nights, and you have a 6-hour bus ride, and you're playing on Sunday, there's almost an understanding of nobody do anything stupid. You can play hard, you finish, but like everyone's hurt. You've essentially played, multiple games in multiple days with no rest, and you've been on a bus. And there's a flow to it, and that doesn't mean sometimes it doesn't get out of hand. So you still block shots, you still throw hits, but there's a level to it. And so even in the Elite League, that come down, but actually you need that game, because if you waste those points or that goal differential, and so my brain never went there. That Sunday game in Edinburgh, you just kind of floating around going, I don't want to get hurt. Let's take it easy. You play hard enough so you have a beer on the bus and be happy with hopefully a 4-point weekend or a 6-point week. Or I guess it's 9, but whatever, and let it go. But sometimes that backfires. Edinburgh decided they'd show up and they needed the points. And so a completely different mentality.
It's also one of the strange things about the Elite League schedule. It's a very like college-like schedule where you have a lot of time to yourself in the week, and then you're just playing at the weekends. And that's kind of a hard thing. That's a hard thing, especially for older players, to get their bodies aren't used to that much rest and then playing straight away.
Yeah, some of the older guys really liked it. It fit with my schedule because going to school and missing. But yeah, there was almost a rust that built up because, again, I spent my entire career multiple games, and especially in the AHL and the East Coast League, as the season goes on, you play more each week because you're not competing with college and high school football. The seasons have changed. So in October, you almost slowly ramp up, and then by Christmas you build. And then after that, it's at least 3 or 4 games a week through. So you're playing more, you're getting sharper each time. And that was the opposite in the UK, because you did 5 days and you almost mentally check out a little bit, or just start with game speed. You can practice as hard as you want, but you can't replicate game speed in a practice. So that 5 days, occasionally you'd hit the ice and all of a sudden it would hit you like, I haven't been, I got to ramp this back up.
And when Corey's like recruiting you, does he tell you that he wants you to be a presence on the ice, or is he bringing you in as to play defense, and then you just be who you are? Is he telling you to be like the biggest, baddest man in the league, like you were, to be honest?
As my career evolved And my last couple of years, especially at AA level, where I was playing 25, 28 minutes a night, was the lead defenseman on teams that won championships and got recognized. It changed the persona a little bit. I never really changed the way I played, but I was, whether more ice time means more valuable, that's, whatever, that's, I figured it was. But when his initial conversations were with me, he's like, we got to counteract this player. And that never got me. I'm like, no, I don't care. Plus I had contracts, right? But by the time I started to speak to him, where, I had some seasons of a lot of ice time, leading league plus minus, that kind of stuff, where my resume had expanded, but also like my just overall abilities. So he was more concerned with me being able to play, and also he knew that I would perform that role. Like, you don't have to tell somebody at my age there's an expectation. And a lot of times the coaches will give you you don't have to do anything. Not once did I get a tap on the shoulder. Not once did anybody on the team, hey, can you get him for me? That's just reactive and what I had learned. And we never actually had a conversation around other guys in the league or who's marked or whatever. And I also said, playing for that long, I knew all those guys anyway. You run across them before at some point. So it wasn't like you drop me in and go, oh no, who's this guy? I already had a knowledge of who each guy was and kind of what the expectation was. And
one of my favorite, this is such an innocuous moment that I don't think you'll remember it. But I remember being in we were on a 5-on-3 penalty kill. And this shows that I thought that you genuinely love just defending and being a defenseman. Like, there was a moment on a 5-on-3 penalty kill where about a minute in, they were making a line change, and you sent the other defenseman back. You were like, no, I'm staying out here. I think it's because you knew you weren't getting on the power play or something.
No, I don't. Dan, let's be very clear. I don't want to be on the power play.
Okay.
I don't. Not a chance. I have a specific skill set, and I have since I was 8 years old. My greatest individual accolade is most people think is ridiculous. There's a coach's poll in what was the old Central Hockey League, 14 teams, on AA. They did a coach's poll for best defensive defenseman. There's no award, no end of season thing. It was a mid-season poll. And there's also best penalty killer. I won the best defensive defenseman, and I was ranked the third best penalty killer, forwards included. All I cared about was defense. I'm not good at offense. When I was 10 years old, I still played the same way. Like, I just didn't cross the blue line. I get shots or you make a pass, but I knew to stay in my lane from a very young age. And I love penalty killing. I love blocking shots. And when the power play comes, I will sit happily on the end of the bench and cheer when we score a goal.
Every team needs someone like that. There's too many people now who want to be on the power play.
Well, yeah. But sorry, I'm getting work emails. That was my whole life though. Like, that was, he doesn't score. There's kids who receive more acclaim, and he's gonna play junior. He's gonna go to university. He's gonna play in the Western League. None of them did, and I did. And because I was good at what I was good at, and I said I wanted nothing to do with the power play. I felt immense pressure anytime I was putting on my life. I just squeezed my stick too tight and not want to be there. So my career point totals, I think my highest is 15. Make a pass, change, get it out of your zone, give it to the forwards, get the hell off the ice.
I think one of my other favorite moments as well was there was a game we were playing against the Braehead clan, and something happened with one of their British players. And I distinctly remember you going over to the penalty box and actually tapping on it with your stick. And I'd never seen anything like that before. And I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant.
Some people, so when we talk about Tim Spencer, right? Tim should know not to do that. Because if I did that to the Sheffield player, I'd expect him to react the way I did. But sometimes British guys, you get a little leeway. Like, hey, here's your warning. Next time you're... And that really, instead of yelling across or making a spectacle of it, I know you notice it, but it's also, a lot of people would have missed that. You just... I don't necessarily remember, but I did that a lot in my career. I tapped on the penalty box for classical. No. And then when the next time they did something penalty box, I went, I'll be waiting right here. That's the idea behind it, because sometimes guys don't know. I said, also I would prefer him to stop doing whatever he did than having to beat up a small British guy.
That is more than fair. I can't argue with that.
So when everybody wins in that scenario, right?
No one gets hurt. I don't have to feel, yeah. You don't have to feel bad about yourself. It's great.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
So did you go to watch the playoff weekend then?
I did not. much
So,
like
because
actually,
some guys do want to go and watch it. Some guys just want to not look at it if they didn't make it.
no, I wanted nothing to do with it. One, not just unhappy that, kind of personal and team goals weren't met during the year. I don't enjoy watching hockey because I look at it from a much more technical and defensive standpoint. I can't watch it now. I watch the World Juniors because Canada plays. So anything Canada does, I watch, national pride, etc. But I haven't watched a full hockey game since I retired.
Because no one plays defense anymore.
There's a lot of good positional defensemen. It's more along the lines of it's hard to remove myself and see. I don't find it entertaining. I find it analytical.
Okay, that makes sense. There are too many analytics in it now.
But that's why the World Juniors is so good, because the kids are so skilled, so fast, but they're still kids making mistakes. So it becomes a little free for them. If you watch the professional, like an NHL game, it's locked down. So to play in that, I'd be my glory. Like, I love that structured, you go here, you got your angles, all that. That's how you play defense. But from a entertainment standpoint, I'm just watching lines on a back and forth, right? Well,
Corey had a reputation as a pretty offensive coach. I imagine he drove you a bit crazy with that sometimes then.
Well, Corey, I think, tried to give me one defensive tip, and I just looked at him. I didn't even say anything, and he just kind of put it, all right, I know. Corey could skate backwards, kind of, and it said D next to his name on the roster, but he wasn't a defenseman.
That's because he gave himself more ice time as a defenseman.
But he just hovered, even when he was playing professional in North America. He puck would be in his zone, he'd be at center and going, I'm open, taking slap shots to the goalie's neck, which worked for him. It's why he got 60 points a year. He was really good at. So he's actually, if you think about it, if you do a yin and a yang, if you combine the two of us, you probably have a much better player.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
Yeah,
that's the perfect thing. So the only reason I asked about the players is because you said that I thought you mentioned that there was a thing with Doug Christiansen off the ice at the playoff weekend, but I must have.
Yeah. No, doesn't mean I wasn't in the rink. Oh, okay. I had words with Doug outside of the rink.
Oh, before
I was asking him to repeat what he had said to me previously, which will save.
I'm guessing he declined.
And he did decline, with his tail tucked between his legs, scurrying out the door. And there's a lot of people that witnessed that, because I was still very angry. I mean, that still bothers me. Just you can't be that guy. You can't go through your life being the guy I described before. But yeah, the playoff weekend, because there's also actually at the end of the season a nice chance to catch up with a bunch of guys who I played with or against, and they said I was well traveled, so there was lots of chance for that year-end pint and a story or two. That's my memory of playoff weekend, not the hockey that was played. I don't even know who won that year. Who won? There you go. See, it wasn't important.
I want to say, actually, unfortunately, it was Sheffield, because Belfast won the league, but then lost everything else. Because Belfast were really good, and I think Sheffield won it in overtime, where I think Drew Farter scored the winner. I've had plenty of people on here and not fond of him either. Don't worry.
You know what? He drove me from Pittsburgh to Wheeling with all my stuff, and I'll be forever in his debt for that one. Well, I had a couple beer to drown my sorrows of getting cut, and instead of having to take a bus or a crappy flight. So I have nothing bad to say about Drew.
Well, that's nice. I like to have both sides of stories, about people sometimes. Because like you said before, like your perspective is based on your experiences. So just because some person's had a bad experience with Drew doesn't mean everyone's had a bad experience with Drew.
No, it's nice to hear. I'm forever in debt to him for him giving me that ride.
And then, how did you find the challenge of studying and playing at the same time? Especially early on, because obviously then you got hurt, and it makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, Lynn Loynes and I hadn't been in school. Like, I'd been doing online learning and piecemeal course stuff, but we hadn't gone to school. And I remember being legitimately nervous. Like I was going to get found out, standing in the parking lot in Derby there. I'm not even sure how it happened, because again, in retrospect, I remember being nervous, and then all of a sudden I was getting my degree. And I know there was like thousands of hours and struggle and all that went through it, but you just made it work. And the team was really good at supporting you for, missing practice because you were in class, and knowing that when game time came, that took precedence, obviously, but the rest of the time having leeway in. I mean, I lived alone, and I had a lot of free, you practice, and I used to train and practice and then rest properly. And instead of training and resting, I would be at school or working on papers. And it was just a replacement in the transition for that. It's one of the things where if I had played a full year and not gone to school, you would have saw a very different product consistently on the ice, because you probably saw glimpses of it. I know there were stretches where I played very well when we had breaks in school and you practice every day. It definitely detracted from my ability to play my best every night, but that was a sacrifice I knew going in. That was something I had already mentally, and actually talking to Corey about it, and the previous guys who had gone through the program, you're willing to accept that trade-off.
I think that the thing that's improved that these days is that now it's a multi-year course. So if a guy comes in on a course now, they're there for 2 years. Yeah. So you've got the first year to adjust to it. And a lot of the times the guys do improve the second year that they're here.
Yeah, you learn that balance. It's like anything, practice makes perfect. So you practice school mixed with, and I think with the 2-year program, obviously cuts it in half, the time away. So that makes a big difference as well. Because we spent a lot of hours at school.
And when you look back at your time in the Elite League, like you spent a lot of time with this smiling, which has been quite nice. It's just that despite probably not being the best time, you still had a good time over here.
It's gotten better ever the farther away I've gotten from it. So it's appreciating. I remember I said I walked in the rink in Nottingham, I'm like, this isn't that nice. But then over the course of the year, going, actually, this place is really nice. And then what getting my schooling done was able to do for me professionally, my post career, has been a lot. And then just memories of, I said, choosing the right. Why hang on to any bad memories? You hang on to good memories. You hang on to the funny things that Corey did, not when he was trying to teach me where my stick should be on the PK, stuff like that. And I said that's a choice to remember it like that. But that was a good year. The organization was good to me. It was a good place to live. It was a good place to play. We did have some success, but we had a good group of guys, and that's what you focus on. What you want to carry with you.
There are pictures of you on the internet with a very colourful beard at certain events. Was there anything planned if we did make the playoff weekend?
No, it's not a long enough stretch. Again, this is the problem. Like that playoff, I used to do it as a transition to playoff, like where everything is that much more heightened and you shut out distraction. And to me, it was an act of acknowledging that with some color and some engagement. Like it's for fun as well. I liken it to, I had a wonderful coach back in the day, Jeff Ward, who's had a lot of success in the NHL, and somebody bitched about why he had to wear suits to the game. It's stupid. He goes, no, the second you put your suit on, when you're at home, you turn a mental corner. This is the start of your workday. So from the walk to the car, the drive in, the whole thing. And it actually related to that, where dyeing my beard, the team colors, was that it's now playoffs. Okay. So, if you're going to stay up an extra half hour, you can't. If you're going to maybe eat something a little poor because you think you can work it off, you don't do that anymore. You solely focus in on this, and this becomes your life and all you focus on. And that was part of the mechanism for me to do that.
Oh, see that they're the stories that I love to hear on this. Like they're just interesting. Like they're just so like niche, but it's a nice.
Yeah, that's.
It colors things in that you didn't know before, which is what this is all about. But then when you look back at your time at Leicester, you remember all the good times more than the bad times, because that's a choice, a good choice. Give me a funny story from your time in Nottingham.
So you mentioned Fife. Now we get up there, and I think I'd already seen Hull. And forgive me, timelines are maybe a little off, but we'd been in some bad bars. You get into Fife, and I stopped, my bag on my shoulder. I went, oh, come on. Like, just, no. Right? Dirt parking lots. I came in, like, I hit my head on the dressing room, like I'm crawling under the stands. And the game, go for warm up, and you just, I don't know, they're loud and they're drunk. Right? So there's a little atmosphere to it. You're having a good time. And that Jordan Fulton's a joke. And he's yapping at guys. It's the same thing. I went, stop that. Like, not okay. Just shut up and we'll be fine. And Danny Stewart, who I actually went to Notre Dame with, I talked about before. Danny knows me from, we have like a mutual best friend. And Danny goes, yeah, just leave him alone. Like, he's fine if you don't poke him. Leave him alone. And Fulton, yap. And I hit him. and I hit him with my glove on, and then I got kicked out, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So as I'm going, what's happening here? The drunk guys behind me are like not spitting on purpose. They're just so full of whatever fight thing is. And they yell at me, and I turn around like, I have no idea what's going on here. Please stop. And they stopped. They just, and there's like a minute of them going, wait a minute, he doesn't get it. And then on the way out, they start again. So I hid in the dressing room. I went for a walk, like down by the water or wherever I went, because I couldn't stay in that building. And I'm sitting on the bus, and one of the older guys who's missing almost all his teeth, he comes on our bus to find me and introduce himself and talk to me. And I remember looking around going, where the hell am I right now? And he wasn't aggressive. He was just, and there was like only one other guy on the bus because the team was, showering. I was already changed and left the game. And I remember going, what planet is this? Because at least before, no matter where we went in the South or, American League, East Coast League, there was some protocol, like some separation. But the same drunk guy who was screaming at me, telling my sister was a goat or whatever the hell he was yelling, who stopped and acknowledged that I couldn't understand what the ref was saying, came onto the bus to like talk to me. And I was like, all right, so that's Fife. I'll never forget. I just look at him like, wow.
What did you make of the accent up there?
I had, like I said, I couldn't give you what they were actually saying to me. You could just tell from tone whether it's negative or not.
They say a few things and then just laugh, and then you're like, yeah.
Yeah, that was whether it's a happy laugh or a sinister laugh, will tell you which way it's going.
Then one of the hot button topic when anyone talks about the Elite League is officiating. How did you find the officiating in the Elite League? I imagine it could have been a bit frustrating for you.
By that point, I can't blame crappy officiating because I expected it. Like, especially the lower, AA level, you have either it's a training ground for good officials who then move up and you never see them again. And as a player, that's what you're hoping to, you see them at the next level. But there's some nights where it was tough. And earlier in my career, I probably would have said, yeah, they were all shit. And, it was awful. But what I learned is that I should expect a certain level. And it was exactly what I expected. And any time that I call it flipped out, I was treated appropriately 90% of the one in Fife, and it's hilarious because it's still online of me punching him. That's a 2-minute roughing penalty. Yeah. I had my glove on, and I hit him like kind of here. He wasn't hurt, like he just fell down.
Is that the one that's on Fife's YouTube channel? It's Brent Henley sucker punches Jordan Fulton.
Yeah, and that one came up. Actually, a work colleague brought that up at a Christmas party. He's like, "Watch this." But it's like those ones were a bit of a wow, this is different. But I don't think that's that particular official, that's his fault, because that's just how it is.
It is different in Scotland as well. The officiating is different when you cross that border.
But that becomes, that's for me, I should figure that out and not blame the officials. But yeah, there was, like any other nights though, there's some good, some bad. In retrospect, there's a lot more good than bad, and that's a terrible job. But also that means you have to be a terrible person that wants to do that, because that's not a secret. So I'll stick with that one on officiating.
Well, it's like Gary always tells me, officials are all just failed players, so they're all bitter.
That's a good way to look at it.
That's what Gary tells me. So he's been around the game long enough; he'll know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when that season came to a close, you had the injuries you'd been studying. Did you know that you were done at that point? Had you had enough? Is it had enough, or is it you just knew that was time for you to try the next thing?
I had that's just a good example. So I had the same pair of shoulder pads and chest protectors since I was 13 years old.
Oh wow!
It had been
a big 13-year-old then.
No, they were really big on me, and then they wore out. And I had they had different shoulder caps put on, and they were altered to meet league requirements, etc. But they were still the original base. They're in the ceiling in Braehead of the dressing room.
They're still there.
I don't know. On the panels, it was an act of a finality for me, because I had never played a game of meaning without them on, and knowing that and they were shot. Like I wasn't going to save them for my kids or.
Because that would have been the first leg, wouldn't that would have been the first game of the two?
No, we lost. Yeah, we lost the second one up there. That was the last. Okay. Last professional game I played was in Braehead. We lost. I don't even remember what happened at home, but we lost the aggregate score. But that was the act for me where I knew I was finished. like I had already mentally, and that was and I don't know if it's silly or not, but to me, like I said, it was symbolic of that's it. I'm done with this, and there's no going. It was just like I said, there's no going back, and I didn't want to throw them in the garbage because I didn't think they deserved that fate because they were so good to me for 21 years. So they might still be. I don't know if they'd be up there or mouse had eaten them or something.
I really hope they are.
I would venture a guess that they are because it's the pop-in panels there, and they were I moved one, threw them down the thing, and then put it back up. So
I might have to text someone to go and check it. I might go text the media, but say, if they are there, please take a photo for me to accompany this whole story with.
Yeah, that's actually it just popped in my head. I completely forgot I had done that years ago. But yeah, that was my retirement act because I didn't think I was getting a Hall of Fame speech anywhere or any induction ceremony. So I guess it's as close as I got.
Well, Braehead's a very unique ring. Have you ever played in a rink before that's actually a shopping mall? Where you walk around and it's just the top floor?
There's been in St. John's, New Brunswick. It was attached to the mall, and you had to go skyway. But yeah, that place was unique. I liked playing there. They had proper
good
dressing
atmosphere.
rooms, good atmosphere. That was actually that. They felt like an outlier as you headed north. It usually got worse, and going there was a nice stop.
Now, one of the more unique things about the Elite League is the relationship you develop with fans through, Gary will make sure that players go into a lot of event nights, getting used to fans, building a rapport with them. How did you find that side of it? Because that's very different to how it works in North America.
At the East Coast League level, it used to be very much like that. So the genesis of my career, I spent a lot of time doing community events, and that would, I don't want to say forced, but like you didn't have a choice. You're
contracted to do it
somewhere. Yeah, exactly. And you know what, honestly, because the constraints that my schooling schedule put on mixed with hockey, I wasn't involved in a lot. I think I maybe had done one, and that was said not by choice or design. It was just out of necessity because of my free time was spent outside of the rink or away. And so I know the team had a lot, and I know especially the guys who'd been there for years had a lot of events and a great outreach in the community, but I actually wasn't a part of it because I was in Derby in a classroom.
And then I cannot thank you enough for your time today, by the way. This has been an absolute joy. I have loved every second of this. And and like your recollection of like stories and things is incredible.
Oh, I appreciate it. I said it brought back a lot of really good memories, and some guys I should probably send some notes to say hi and check up on because it's been a little while. There's Craig Kowalski is probably on that list just so I can see, just so I can picture his scowling gremlin face that he makes.
Well, like when he lets a goal in, it's your fault, not his.
Yeah, no, it was never his fault.
The question is, did you ever score on him at practice? Because I know he didn't try very hard at practice as well. Because I've had him on here, and he said he didn't like.
Yeah, no, he was not a fan of that. Much like my regular gameplay, there wasn't a lot of goals anywhere at any time on the ice. I worked on hitting him in the pads to not hurt him, because if I had to hurt him, that would have been really bad for us as a team. So to sacrifice my own personal glory of scoring on him. Dan Green, I let Dan Green up. Scored a lot on Danny. You can quote me on that one.
I'm gonna clip that out and send that to Dan.
Yeah. Although add the caveat, he might just been trying to make me feel good at that point. So who knows?
He might have been scared of you. So if you had to look back at your time in Nottingham as a whole, so I know you're a busy man, I'm gonna let you get back to work very shortly. What would you be your fondest memory of Nottingham?
I have an off ice where we had a summer barbecue, and it was summer. It was the end of August, and I really thought shorts, and like it was cold out.
It's raining,
and the whole team had got there, and it was my first. This is a real team in a real league with real guys, and we had a couple beer, barbecue, some hamburgers or whatever it was, and I remember feeling that I was going to be okay for the year. And that's a testament to guys like David Clark and Benny. And all those guys were there for that. And that was a good start of the year. And that's something that if you're not on a team, that's hard to replicate. You know, family barbecues, have a couple of friends over, but to have, 22 guys with a similarly minded, but also the single goal to be a team and win was a really good start to it. And then honestly, I'm still so mad about Italy. It makes me happy that I had the chance to be this mad about it, but that we played.
It shows it meant something.
It meant something, and I mean, a lot of it's personal because I played really well over those games because it was at a level that I expected myself to play at, but everybody did. There was watching Lynn Loinstead had like 2 guys on his back at one point skating on the ice. You could see how that's why he was an NHL player. And you didn't see him all year. He wasn't able to do that because of the school and family and all that stuff. But to have that memory and be given that opportunity to say I played in an open air arena in Asiago, Italy, with those guys who were that good and they cared that much. And then after we lost, whatever fans were there, we all went out, and that all bled into a really good trip. And I guess that's kind of a synopsis of the time in Nottingham, where even if we didn't win, there was good guys and good fans and a good organization.
At the Nottingham, we pride ourselves on giving members a better financial future for you and your family, whether that's investing your savings, purchasing a house, or saving for the future. We're big believers that every penny helps, and together we can help turn your saving into a habit. From ISAs and fixed rate accounts to easy access savings and ideas to get your little one started. We have a great range of savings accounts to suit almost everyone, so why not visit us at thenottingham.com and find out why more than 190,000 customers already trust us with their savings.